Created with free version for non-commercial use.
The best of me. I am a person who tends to live life in a realistic way, who fulfills my dreams as a true future, and that after the time that passes, I will remake my mind in a fundamental concept of ideas that for me to fight more with my intellectual side, that we simplify in the search for life without any conflict with youth, which is just a fantasy in which we put in order a function of reacting with a simple desire to achieve something that makes us well as the esteem of ourselves, remaking and conquering the new world more than that we dream in the old days, and we
Created with free
learn
version
better
for
to use our
non-commercial use.
capacity that today is more evolved with many technological advances, that we would be frustrated to do something unusual if we were incomplete, and we have metaphysics in our environment to remake all raw materials in perfect union and high performance to create something or something that makes us happy and leaves us rested. And today we seek more the things that a conviction suggests for shows are that we are more powerful and creative. After a few years we have already put the right things in the right place, and we are not insecure because we know that everything is going well and is in perfect union like an atom. I am more my ideas that become more agile in any circumstance that I do in life, and I leave aside the bad mood of overcoming the weaknesses of life that are as evidence of new efforts that remain with us the true conclusions, and the answer is certain, and soon I feel good.
Created with free version for non-commercial
Why not?
use.
We live today in a Republican country that was as crude in a story as other classifieds, in which we can say that we were simply irradiated and influenced by everything or by the most common tradition of a people that is reflected in various races under a different sovereignty, and several thrones were classified as examples of power. Justice and order over the near society that is now more formalized and educated about new standards that teach great people who do not think as in the past that today the standard of living is growing as a result of foreign infiltrations into the labor market and the great industrial revolutions that always surprise us and give space to the southern man with his hard-working role, exercising more culture and love for his fellow men than his habits are more like examples and activities in our social and intellectual environments. I believe that we stop pacifying our good times when we must always remember how it was the primitive man who for a socialist simplicity was born in this world in an aspect that maybe he may have remembered the ape man. Primitive that today we are totalized in a platform that maybe still is conquering our spaces and giving rise to our horizons. We versify a beautiful story that we always take to the unforgettable future as a prodigious and formalized emanation in which we plant the seeds in well-designed soils. Our commitments and that life really looks different than we simply think, and that the world is under our control. I believe that we are just establishing a more comprehensive way of life with us, and I have always believed that man would achieve his goals how to transform a fraction of time into seconds, and that life can always show us what the world is like
version for non-commercial use.
And what its realities are like. They are always questioning us to follow a good standard. This will certainly lead us to the contradictions of life, because life always ends us with a purpose or setback that it destines us, and always makes us react to an unprecedented surface of dreams and fantasies that we put in the practices of work, love, friendship, and we always remake our minds in a version of believing that we can always win our wills and always be young, and death would be just a reminder of a past when we were great people. We walked around the world and conquered life and death. It no longer exists, and what exists is only memories of a time of conquests. Fantastic elaboration in a well-traveled path, and we must always travel to the future because one day it will be able to show us the life we planned, and yes, we will learn to live and follow a path that it will take us to a space where we will have time to transcribe our voids that may make us understand what we lacked, and that our consciences are simply the love that we have and that we learn to live. Value life and simply our world. By Roberto Barros.
Created with free version for non-commercial use. Created with free version for non-commercial use. Created with free version for non-commercial use.
The first time we met.
Thoughts. We learn to value our lives when we feel that we have lost sight, and we learn to preserve our nature when we suspect that we are not living happily, but in which we have gone unnoticed. The values of good things are not extinguished simply by always keeping them at the waist. Life can spread with death while life always gives more flow. To keep death spinning, a man's value to the disaffected may simply not be measured in his character any more than he ever is, or in spaces for the densities of life. Beauty can be the beast, but the beast can never be so beautiful. Time makes us react to all the fingerprints that it transmits to us because we may not arrive on time, and simply when it reacts to us, I am more realistic because I live in life and take care of everything in time that can make me believe the truth. The logic is to live and not die, while many believe it. The past may be the future of today, that we dream of old things. I believe that we can always find a path that will always open a door, where it will simply take us somewhere, and that the future can be like a school, that we will put into practice all our desires and the beautiful actions that we dream of, and we can be happy with what we do and learn, because life is a place of our will in which all our love is more focused on the fantasy of living and being happy. The logic was to create a fable that in fantasy brings us more life to our stimuli, as our sovereignties can favor more loyalty and fascination of tests and love amid a desire for glory in which we can always live happily. I am just a hero who consciously lives from a discipline in which my poem is to live in certain ways, that I can always conquer less the life, that I always manage to establish by my capacity more love and joy by a simple desire to live and be happy forever. Life can be better lived when there is something more substantial in its reality that makes us feel happy, because we are actually living a happier life. Thought has never ceased to persist in an active mind as long as there is always something of feeling that has earned it the realistic simplicity of having something of value that always makes us reflect real thinking in our minds. Life and death can be the same, and for one reason we must be born to die or die to be born when there is life. That at all times does not effectively disagree with the evidence of establishing its existence to live. The strong can be perhaps for the weak as well as the weak can be for the strong, unless they prove between two existences modeled as all the circumstances of life that were established in the beginning of the world as love and hate between good and evil are represented. Evil, in which everything for all remained under the pretexts of the strong, and the weak as a representation intended for a classification from more to less and less to more, and with the human equality of mortals being enshrined in everything, in the lives of the strongest and most weak remain the same, in which one depends on the other, because everything is relative and is in a fight reaction. Time can be contained in the hours in which there is existence in relation to other relationships in life, in which we can prescribe our work and carelessness based on any reaction of struggle, in which fate gives us the need to try to do something. That simply is, and it will remain in the time when we can necessarily live and make things happen. We can inevitably accomplish something in time by setting everything up for the moment. The writer will always make everything more logical, because he lives from a concept of experiencing his habits, and always readjust his opinions. No matter how strong his point of view, he never failed to show that everything was clarified, well worked and written, in which he always logically proved to be creative. The house of the poor never looked like the house of the rich, but simply the rich never stopped needing the poor. Fortresses are valuation houses against the evil that wants to dominate some life, and we will always strengthen and remain big and strong over the disadvantages of life as long as there is any distraction that persists in all our glory, in which we will always remain and preserve our natures and fortresses, because we're just advocating something of value in our lives. Hope can really be our class, in which we never fail with our relationships of trust, and who are simply honored and qualified by our personal qualities, and say that we will never die because we are the best people, and that hope lives in the time that we remain certain things, in which we always seek the best pleasure in living. By Roberto Barros.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
When truth hurts,
Created with free version for non-commercial use. Created with free version for non-commercial use.
here today, then fade
Ways.
away.
The path of fire is water, with the path of water is fire, that we only feel that reality is always dominated by the circumstances between life and death that distance any element, and the substance of a relativity established between the planes of life and the death.